Hello, welcome to the class of HTML5 programming. So today we are going to discuss about CSS3 visual effect property. So this CSS introduced the new property in CSS3 module that provide visual effect on web pages. So in this class we will discuss about the CSS3 visual effect property one by one. So first of all we are starting with the first property, that is CSS background clip property. So this CSS background clip property defines how far the background should extend within an element. So it's confine the display of the background image with these property. These values, the content box, padding box and the border box. So here in the HTML program, I have used these different ID selector to mention this background clip property for the border box, for the padding box and the another is for the content box. So let's see about this ID selector. In head section I use the style element, and with the style element I am using these three ID selector. I mention these ID selector. Then in declaration part I declare the border property, the padding property, the background color, and then the background clip colon border box. So to the syntax for the background clip property is background clip colon background box. And in another ID selector I mention the same properties, border, padding, background color, and last one is for the background clip equals to padding box. In the another property, another ID selector I use the same property, but for the background clip property I mention the content box. Now come up to the body part. So here in body section I have used this heading, H1 heading. After that I declare the different paragraphs to display these three clip property, value 1 as value 2 and value 3. And in division I have used the division structure element. In division structure element, this opening tag I have mentioned the ID selector name equals to x1. And in another division element I have used the another ID selector name as ex2, and in the third I have used the ID selector name equals to ex3. So here I mention this ID selector name as that of the ID selector which we have declared here in this head section. So this ex1 will display the border box, ex2 will display the padding box, and ex3 will display the content box. So let's see how it will be displayed in the browser. For that you have to go to the run part and now launch in Chrome. So here it will display like this. So in background it displays the heading as background clip property and value 1, value 2 and for the value 3. It's displaying the border box, padding box, and this one is for the content box. Now come up to the head section where we have declared this background clip property. So first ID selector will display the background clip property for the border box. So here this border box property is set as the default, and the background image will display to the area behind the content, padding and border. You can see that this background color will display under this border. It means it is also covering the border part. So for in border box the background color or the background image will cover up this border part also. Next another ID selector I use the background clip property equals to padding box. So here in image you can see that it's on the color, background color will start from the padding edge. It doesn't covering the border area. So it means padding box, the background image display to the area behind the content and the padding. It doesn't cover the border area. In the next ID selector I use the background clip property equals to content box. So here you can see in the image the background image display to the area behind the content only. It doesn't covering the padding area or the border area. So this is the difference between the background clip property for the border box, padding box and the content box. So this is how it can be displayed in the browser. If we will select the border box or if we will select the padding box, it will cover the padding edge of the web browser, whereas in ID selector 3 for the content box, it will only cover the content edges. So this is about the background clip property. Now we are going to discuss about the another property, CSS visual effect property, that is the CSS3 background origin property. So this property specifies the position of the background image with these three values. So these values are content box, padding box and the border box. So let's see. So here in head section I have mentioned the style element. In style element I have used these three ID selector. So these in ID selector I have mentioned the one property named as background origin for the padding box. In another selector I use the background origin for the border box, and in another last selector I have used the background origin as the content box. So come up to this first ID selector named as ex1, and I have in declaration part I mentioned the border property, padding property, background image property to add the image to the background. Next, background repeat, that you want to repeat the image or not, I have mentioned here no repeat. Next, in background origin I have write the padding box, and in another background position I have write the right top. So let's see, in the body section I have mentioned this ID selector in the division structural element. So this is I have given the ID selector name as ex1 for the padding box, ex2 for the border box and ex3 for the content box, and I mentioned the paragraph with it. Upper right corner. Now save the program and go to run and launch in Chrome. So you can see that it will display like this in the browser. So for the padding box, come up to the ID selector part. So for background origin property for the padding box, you can see that the background image starts from the upper right corner of the padding edge. It is starting from the padding edge. Next is for the border box. You can see that the background image starts from the upper right corner of the border. It is starting from the border part. Here it is starting from the padding edge. And for the last selector, we have mentioned the content box. Background origin property is content box. So here you can see that the background image starts from the upper right corner of the content. So here it is not covering the padding edge or the border edge. It is starting from the content box. So this is about the background origin property, padding box, border box and for the content box. This is the difference between these background origin properties. So this is all about the CSS3 visual effect property. We will discuss about the another property in next class. Thank you.